Hello and welcome to Connected. On the show tonight, the King, Wally Lewis, debunks the bunker. Like a career in TV, we look at a unique training program with Gerry from NEP Broadcasting. Our roving reporter Hinksy visits the iconic XXXX Brewery on the hunt for his beer river. And local Toowoomba cover singer Jared Kanovski takes to our stage with his rendition of the hit Foo Fighters song My Hero. It's time to get local and get connected. First up on the program today, with a career spanning 30 years, my first guest has certainly made a name for herself in Australian television. In fact, she was the first female to direct and produce live rugby league while working for the ABC in the 80s. Well, now Gerry O'Leary is the head of broadcast training program, host broadcaster for the 2018 Commonwealth Games to be held on the Gold Coast. And Gerry joins us now on Connected. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
What a job you have in front of you.
I do indeed, but it's very exciting.
It is great. I mean, looking back at the career, I guess one of those highlights would have been first female director of rugby.
It was indeed, and I was very lucky with my career starting at the ABC at an early age, and in those days the networks did train people to work in television. Things have changed a little bit now. A lot of the work is outsourced. It very much is a freelance market out there.
Yeah.
So, but I was very lucky. So I did have all my training at the ABC, and then I was lucky enough to go and work at Fox Sports for a couple of years. And
with the introduction of like pay television and things like that too, you know, so.
Absolutely, more sport, so the requirement for more content. Now we have 8 games of rugby league covered every week, and there's A-League, there
seems to be more content being covered now than what there was when there was just the networks themselves.
Definitely, and I suppose, you know, also with free-to-air now you've got 2 or 3 channels that each free-to-air network has as well, so they have the capacity to spread the sport across the various networks, so it's good.
Your career and your love of sport has certainly taken you a long way, not just around Australia but also overseas.
Oh yes, I've been very lucky. Paralympics has always been my passion as well, so I was lucky enough to go to Barcelona and Atlanta, and then we had the Sydney Paralympic Games, which was fantastic, and then on to Athens and the Asian Games. So I went over in 2006 to Doha, which is where the World Cup will be in a few years' time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have a favourite sport to cover?
Look, I like all sport. I suppose I've always been a spectator of sport, so I enjoy the story that unfolds before you, the competition. Yeah, but I do love rugby league, I must say.
That's the one passion, I'm sure. You also were the host broadcast manager for the GE20, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, that would have needed some different set of skills.
Yes, look, we had 2,000 media come in from all around the world, and as you can imagine, security was a huge issue and a challenge for us and for the media as well, because we had to make sure that they had access to areas that they needed, but at the same time that the leaders were protected.
Yes.
So yeah, that was an interesting planning exercise, but it was very successful.
Well, of course, one thing I know you love doing, apart from being a spectator of sport and covering sport, but also giving back to up-and-coming talent in the media industry, don't you?
I do, and look, I'm very lucky in the role that I have now. I'm working for NEP Australia, who have been successful as host in gaining the contract for the host broadcasting of the Commonwealth Games, and we're working on a training program where we're working with universities in Queensland and integrating students within our week-to-week work that we do, whether it's rugby league, whether it's cricket, AFL is another sport that we cover, and students will get a chance to come out and do some hands-on work experience with us, as well as get some training job specific for games time. So as you can imagine, Damien, like 1,400 crew we need for Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
So
it's a great opportunity, and one that when I was working in television wasn't readily available. You only got into television if you were lucky enough to get into a network station. So what you're doing is really opening up so many more doors for young people to get at least a foothold.
Absolutely. And look, NEP, like I said, the world has changed out there. It's very much a freelance market now because networks don't employ full-time staff. They don't own outside broadcasts. So NEP, they have 12 semi-trailer trucks that travel the countryside every weekend doing outside broadcasts, and the people that are employed are freelancers, and so we're cameramen, audio directors, EVS operators, engineers, technicians.
Right up to the truck driver who drives the truck.
Yeah, exactly right. And then the networks certainly produce the programs, so the producer, the director will come from the network, but it's NEP who employs the crew to come and work on the sports.
Well, Gerry, it's a golden opportunity you're giving young people, and we thank you so much for coming in today and talking about it.
Thank you for having me.
So there you go. If you'd like to be a part of it, get into a university course, and you might meet up with Gerry in the corridor and get yourself onto the 2018 Commonwealth Games. Coming up next, we will be seeing if beauty is really in the eye of the beer holder when Hinksy takes a personal tour of the historic 4X Brewery. All that and more when we return on Connected. And welcome back. Well, have you ever wondered how the 4X Brew got its name or how it's made? Well, this week we sent Hinksy out to the iconic 4X Brewery at Milton to learn about the history of the popular ale and attempt to find that mythical beer river.
Hi, I'm Hinksy, and I've got such a tough job today. I'm here at the 4X Brewery. I feel like I've got a golden ticket. We're going to be taking a tour, and the best part is I'll be sampling what we see. Now, our guide for the day is Paul. Now, what are we going to be seeing today, Paul, here at the 4X Brewery?
Alrighty, well, I started here way back in 1974, so I've seen a lot of changes in that time. So I'm going to take you through the inner workings of the brewery. We're going to learn not only about the history of beer and the story behind 4X, but we'll venture out on site and we're going to end up back in that brewery bar where we do that flavour training.
So this is the beginning of the tour. Inside, are we going to find, when you open this door, a beer river and little Palumpas putting hops in so that we can enjoy the product?
Well, not quite in that detail, but we're going to see the process, how it's evolved since 1878.
Let's go in. So this is where we're going to learn more about beer.
Well, you're going to learn more about 4X in this room. This is when it all started.
The important beer.
That's right. I can feel
Well, you finally made it inside one of the most iconic breweries in Australia.
Can you imagine putting the beer in the wings of a plane to chill it down?
I think that's awesome.
I totally agree.
I'm really surprised about the history of it and the way that the first phone line and even the way 4X has given back to the community over the years with different disasters and things that have happened around Queensland. It's amazing.
Style beer, like a Gold Australian Pale Ale, we would chill it down to about 15 to 17 degrees because ale-style beers, the yeast sits on the top.
Right.
So regardless of more full-flavoured, full-bodied beers, whereas lager beers, we would chill it down to 10 or 12, like your 4X Bitter and Gold.
So the stubbies, that was pretty much pioneered by 4X.
Exactly right. They first introduced in 1962. And a year before that, we used to do steel cans, 3-piece steel cans at 40 cans a minute. Well, the stubbies were filled at 140 a minute, and we didn't know what to call them in 1962. So written on the side of the carton, it was written in glass cans.
But does beer taste better in glass or cans, do you reckon?
Depends on the individual.
So, Paul, Mr. Forex, there's a lot of history behind him. Of course, if you drive down Milton Road, you see him winking at you at night. But, where does he come from?
Well, there's a few stories associated with Mr. Forex. First off, they used to think it was Paddy Fitzgerald who was our general manager in the 1970s. Not so, because he never started here until 1933 as a salesman, so that discounts him because he came in on the scene in the 1920s. There used to be a little Irish dwarf who used to sell newspapers down Fortitude Valley called Paddy Finn, and a lot of people have evidence to say it was definitely him because it was also associated with the straw boater hat they put on his head not long after he came in on the scene. This way, we're going to see where all the action happens. We're all kitted up with our safety gear on.
Safety ears, safety eyes, and now time for the magic.
The magic, come on through. Over in the packaging building, we have 3 glass wine fillers, and they vary from 800 to 850 to 870 bottles per minute. So if you look at a 24-hour time slot, we can do in excess of 2 million bottles of beer. A lot of different products we run here at the brewery. So apart from our Forex products, we also brew Tooheys and Hard as well. Leaving the brewery on a daily basis, there would be around 60 loads, and I'm talking 24 pallets, either 70 or up to 90 cartons per pallet. So a lot of beer leaves here. Well, there we have it.
I tell you what, this tour has been absolutely fantastic, just seeing the history of how beer's made here at the Forex Brewery, but just how much Forex is a part of the Queensland community. It's really amazing.
It's come a long way, hasn't it?
But I can, my taste buds are calling. I think it's time to taste what we've just seen. Oh look, it's already made for us. So what have we got?
My favourite, which is your Forex bitter. It's been out since 1924. It's the traditional and the best.
Perfect. Paul, thank you so much for this tour. Now, anyone can come in and do this.
My word, they can, yeah. We run tours 6 days a week, and they're normally 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock. We do run some out-of-hours ones by special arrangement from time to time.
See, a lot of people didn't realise that there's a restaurant and a bar here at the Forex Brewery.
And what a location.
Look, Paul, thank you so much. Cheers to the history of Forex Brewery.
Well, it seems as though he didn't find that river, but there was plenty of beer waiting for him at the end of that tour. Remember the important facts of life, though. Hinksy, 24 hours in a day, 24 beers in a carton. Coincidence? I don't think so. If you'd like to go on your own tour of the brewery, head to forex.com.au and follow the links to the brewery tours. Coming up next, we have the king of rugby league himself, Wally Lewis. This is Connected. And welcome back to Connected. Well, in the early 1980s, there were those who acclaimed the Emperor Lang Park as the best player the game had ever seen. Others, particularly the New South Wales press, portrayed him as the controversial figure that should be cut down to size. Well, now the King has them all in agreement after a career of countless highlights for his clubs, Queensland and Australia. And I'm very pleased to say Wally Lewis joins us on the program. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very well. Yeah, enjoyed some good time in footy.
Yeah, very much so. And of course, we all know your career personally. Of course, you've been struggling a bit with epilepsy over the past 20 years.
Yeah, it was something that I kept very much to myself. I didn't know who I could trust in the early days. I can remember I was supposed to play in a game in 1979. It was City versus Country.
Right.
I didn't feel too good. Had to withdraw from the side and went to the local doctor, and he told me I had the flu. I probably didn't explain it all that well to him. But did not feel too good at all. So I just kept wondering why I was getting the flu all of the time. It wasn't until some years later when I played in a test match against New Zealand, I got a bit of a bump to the head and made sure that I got some scans the next day, and the doc said the scans aren't the problem for you, it's epilepsy. And I denied it, said I've never had epilepsy, nobody in my family's ever had epilepsy, it shouldn't have come on. He said, well, it's here now. I had some further scans. He said, if you've got epilepsy, this is how they'll they'll show up. The two were put together, and they were absolute carbon copies. So I was dealing with epilepsy, and from there it became a case of which direction do I head, and how long will it go on. I'm sure everybody remembers when I mucked up on TV. That was many years later, but I decided to hide it. It was probably something that I didn't handle all that well for a long time, but having been part of the media for a long time, I didn't trust too many people in telling them about it, and made the worst possible way of promoting that I did have it, having the seizure on air and urinating in my pants while I was sitting there trying to read sport in front of 1.5 million people. So it wasn't a good promo.
So it was out there for sure, then, definitely. But I mean, it's led on to you doing work with charities and things like that. So I mean, you know, with the knowledge that people have now, it's always better to open up and discuss it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, probably the biggest issue I had to start with was that not too many people understood much about epilepsy. I certainly didn't, even though that I was dealing with it. I thought that if you had epilepsy, you had full-blown seizures. You were on the floor, you were shaking around and doing it a little bit tough. And I was then told that there were 57 different forms of epilepsy. I knew nothing about it, and I've become quite close to the doctors and other people that are suffering from it as well, to be able to deal with it. And some of the best times that I have now, the most enjoyable times of my life that I have now, is when I'm talking to a mum and dad or a patient themselves that have just been informed that they or their children have epilepsy, and they all ask the same question. What direction do I travel in? Do I have surgery straight away? And I say that I'll talk to you from a patient's perspective. I can't be the doctor. They're the ones that will make the decision, but it makes me feel pretty good at the end of the day.
Yeah, it certainly does, mate. You've given a lot of pleasure to a lot of people, of course, over those years of playing football. But now things have certainly taken a different direction with this bunker, which has been launched and is starting to make a lot of calls. A lot of controversy over this, though, in the first 9 rounds.
Yeah, it was interesting. When we saw the first few weeks of the decision making, the referees had the pressure taken away from them. It simply went to the studios. They'd have a replay of the incident, and it seemed to be a fairly easy changeover period. Yeah. The decisions that were made early were all correct. Yep. After a few weeks, though, they started to be, well, we're not really sure, let's have another one. And then they also started to make decisions and tell the referee. And that wasn't at a time when the referees were calling on them to make a decision. So there was instant rejection from the players, from the coaches, probably from the rugby league public. The bunker system was not seen as a standout feature, and if there is another area of the game it probably adds to that people don't want to see, it's just how slow it is. Originally they were 15, 20, maybe 30 seconds. Now we're getting 2.5 minutes, and that's far too long. And
because the whole reason for the bunker was to try and speed up the game process, wasn't
it? Yeah, that's it. So it's kind of headed in completely the opposite direction. Look, if they can make it easy for the referees, I'm sure that's what everybody would feel a lot more comfortable with. They've got the toughest job that there is in the game. It's no fun. There isn't a player in the game that would like to be a referee, but to be given some sort of assistance from the bunker, if they can do it, make it quick, get it over and done with, I think everybody would be happy.
Well, let's have a little look at a clip. Here is round 8, the Roosters versus the Dragons. It's only minutes to go, and we're talking about this tackle from Dylan Napa on Tarn Mill. What did you read when you saw this on camera?
Look, I think everybody was a little bit confused. The issue was when there was a kick where there were contact made on a number of occasions, whether there had been whether a decision was required instantly. The Dylan Napa one. Well, I don't think too many people disagree with it. There was a little bit of contact made. The decision had to be whether it was illegal contact that was made or accidental contact that was made. A lot of people believe that that was the incorrect one. When I looked at that one, I thought it was a little bit high, but I don't think that there was any intention there. And to me, the injury was caused by the contact made by the two Roosters players. Yep. It was a pretty tough set of contact.
It was a head clash rather than a high tackle.
Exactly. Yep. The head contact that caused the concussion to the ball carrier was not something that the players in defence planned to do.
Having a look at another clip we have here is round 3, Roosters versus Manly. Roosters try with 6 minutes to go, and this was another one where it was virtually drawing a line down the centre of the screen, and it really could have gone both ways.
Yeah, this is the one that I thought was a real tough one, because it was certainly accidental that there was contact made, but just about everybody at the game thought, well, it's a straightforward decision.
Yeah.
There was contact made there. The player is offside in front, so it cannot go ahead. It's an easy one. Come on, let's have the decision. Go ahead. We don't have to eat it. We don't have to make it. Go ahead with the try. No try come up, and everybody looked at each other and thought, well, we're not real good at making the judgments on these. When you put the people, when they've got positions of power, you put them into those areas with the idea that it's not going to be that tough. It'll go ahead. The biggest problem for me is having two men in the box at the time. One may decide that it is a try, the other one may decide it's not as a try. What are you going to do then? Unless they're taking a coin in with them, it's going to be a little bit difficult to come up with one.
And then you've also got to throw in the on-field guys as well.
Yeah, the on-field referees, they have their belief as well, but it's tough for them as well. They're told that they must make a decision, and then it goes to the bunker from there to be able to decide. They've got to come up with proof evidence then to change that decision from the referee.
So we should really rely on the field umpires initially.
Yeah, I think I'm certainly one of those that's had a little bit of a whinge about it more than one occasion from the on-field referee, but they're out there, they're working under the same pressure, the same circumstances as the players are.
Yeah, well, mate, it's a bit of an enlightening moment for us to have a look inside the bunker. I guess you've been there.
Yeah, had a look at it. I think the best part about it is it's away from the pressure of the game.
Yes.
They've got absolutely no pressure on them except for the decision itself, which is tough enough, but at least they're away from the game, which makes it a little bit easier for them.
Well, mate, thank you so much for joining us on the program, and look forward to seeing you on 9 News.
My pleasure indeed.
Thanks very much. Wally Lewis there. And turning something a bit different now, he's a local Toowoomba cover artist punching out the classics that we all know. And you can see him down at the Aussie National Hotel most Sunday afternoons. But tonight he's here to sing up a storm. It's Foo Fighters' song, My Hero. Please welcome Jared Kanovski.
Take your pictures down, shake it out. Truth or consequence, say it aloud. Use that evidence, racing around. There goes my hero.
Great song from Jared Kanovski there, and that just about wraps up this edition of the program. Thank you so much for your company from the entire team here at Connected. Bye for now.